fireworks.
High school? No. No, I wasn't that bad.
Welcome to the September 9th, 2024 meeting of the Sandusky City Commission. We'll have an invocation offered by Commissioner Vargo, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, we come before you today grateful for the opportunity to serve our community. As we gather here to discuss the matters that affect our city and its residents, we ask for your guidance and wisdom and clarity. Help us to work together with respect and kindness, setting aside any personal differences for the greater good. Bless this meeting, all who are present, and the community of Sandusky. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Myers, you call the roll.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Pajali?
Here.
Mr. Kuntz?
Here.
Mr. Crable?
Here.
Ms. Vargo?
Here.
Mr. Waddington?
Here.
Mr. Brady? Mr. Murray?
Here.
Commissioners, you have before the minutes of our meeting of August the 26th, 2024. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Watt.
I move that we accept the minutes of the August 26th meeting as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second discussion. Without objection, the motion will be approved. Hearing no objection, those minutes are approved. Tonight, we begin with a presentation on the progress of our strategic plan by our consultants, Shelley Freed and Alex Pesta. I am going to let that presentation begin with some comments from our city manager, John Orzak, and at the conclusion of this, we'll entertain questions from the commission on this strategic plan.
For the commission and community, tonight we are pleased to present a draft update for the strategic planning process. There are three main points that we are trying to emphasize tonight that are important to this work and will guide the city forward for the next 5 years. First, there have been multiple audiences that have informed everything that you're going to see today through community surveys, the community's input, through the commission and your hard work, and the city administration. All voices are present in this presentation tonight. Also, the commission has set a direction and has been instrumental in helping guide this work. And the administration will continue and is prepared to implement the work to serve the city of Sandusky. I now turn over the presentation to Alex Pesta and Shelley Freed to speak about the process and progress that they've made. And in a few short months, we'll have a final plan to present to the community and the commission. Thank you.
Alex and Shelley.
I can do that. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for having us. As City Manager Orzak mentioned, my name is Alex Pesta, and with me is
Shelley Freed.
All right. I'm going to attempt to navigate. Here we go. Our time together tonight, we'd like to welcome and kind of do a recap of the progress that we've made thus far working with all of the folks that the city manager outlined, and really spend a lot of our time with a tool that we've developed that we refer to as decision-making matrix and framework. We're really excited to be in front of you and have these conversations that are vitally important to the future of the city of Sandusky.
Great, thank you. We're going to take a few minutes to review how we got to today, some of the work that was done to prepare this decision-making framework, and to remind everyone in the room all of the different voices that are present that got us to this framework. So we have done one-on-one interviews with commission. We have done one-on-one and group interviews with city administration. We've tapped the community for a voice of community through a survey where we really wanted to get a voice of what is the narrative about the city from the community. So all of these things have informed everything that you're seeing here today. And we're going to take a couple of minutes across this presentation to point out things that directly came from commission, administration, and the community so that you can see where it's showing up. Finally, Alex and I talk a lot about how commissions and city administrations work together. And one of the ways that we think about these two entities working is similar to a nonprofit. You have a board of directors, but you also have an operations team. And the two need to work together in order to implement really great work. So we have tapped the City Commission for their ideas, their goals, and categories that are important. And we've also tapped the expertise of everyone within City Hall to understand how we can implement work to achieve the vision and goals of the commission. We're going to walk you through some of these things right now.
Okay. We don't need to spend much time here. I'm Alex. This is Shelley. I have the great fortune of reconnecting with the city of Sandusky. My team in Firm City Architecture was part of the Bicentennial Vision Plan that we are so excited to see so many things get implemented as a result of that plan and that community engagement. Sandusky continues to grow, and Shelley and I are honored to be part of kind of that next chapter, as John mentioned, kind of how this document might guide some of those future decisions. Tonight, we are presenting, and I think that we're at a really key and critical point where we want some of that feedback. We wanted to share out that draft, and quite honestly, this is the first time that we've been in front of the public with a strategic plan. Shelley is going to spend a little bit of time on the difference between a strategic plan and a vision plan, but really the strategic plan is an internal document to open up lines of communication and help make decisions. We are in the tail end of this process. As City Manager Orzech mentioned, we are hopeful to be back in front of this commission, and we would be asking you to take action as far as adoption of the strategic plan in the next few months. That way it is ready, willing, and able to be activated in the beginning of the year with some of the decisions that are going to be in front of this commission. Do you have anything else to add? All right. Part of our work is to really understand the landscape of Sandusky. As an architect, city planner, and now strategist, I want to understand what's physically happening in the city. I want to understand some of the policies and documents that this commission and the city is making decisions with. We went back and we've examined all of the planning documents that we could get our hands on. We looked at 9 different planning documents. Our work, just to give you an idea of how detailed and kind of into the weeds we got, we identified 902 individual initiatives that have been outlined in those plans, over 125 public meetings, and about 3,000 participants that are kind of embodied with the work that has been up to date. It's not to say that you're done, but it's also to recognize that there are really great ideas that still need to be implemented as a result of all of those plans. And from my position in my seat, really maximizing the value of those process and honoring almost the 3,000 participants is to take action on what folks have already shared that they want to see happen within their city. And that's really what the key goal and the aim of this strategic plan outlines and sets to do.
We began by doing our one-on-one and group interviews, both with the commission and with the administration. And across the interview set, there was a narrative that was shared that the community feels that the city has focused a lot of attention on the central neighborhood where downtown is located. And this was the desire to, oh, pardon me. Thank you.
You guys are hard to hear, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
The desire to ensure that neighborhoods are also a part of the mix for this commission was something we really wanted to tap. And so we ran a community survey. It was never intended to be a statistically perfect survey. It was really about tapping the voice of what people are talking about in the community, downtown or the central neighborhood versus the neighborhoods. So we ran this survey for 3 or 4 weeks. We actually extended it by a week. We had a really nice response rate. And what we'd like to do is share with you some of the results. There were multiple ways by which this was promoted, both inside City Hall, through the newspaper, through digital outlets, and we feel pretty good about the kind of response that we got. We like to, at the end of any survey, ask for the top word or top 3 words that you would use to describe whatever the topic is. In this case, it was the city of Sandusky. And then we create something that we call a word cloud. And a word cloud takes all of the words that were shared from the survey in that last question, and it assigns a weight to them based on how many times they appeared in the survey. So any word that you see on the screen there that is larger appeared more than the words that appear smaller. And obviously you can see beautiful is the primary word in that word cloud. The only scrubbing that we did of the responses was to consolidate some of the words. For example, you see beautiful is really big in the middle there. Some people said beauty, some people said beautiful. And so we wanted to just maximize what the response was. So we did choose certain words like beautiful in terms of mashing up the responses. We also went through a traditional piece of how old are you, where do you live, what is your race, what is your gender, all of these things. And this part of the survey is pretty traditional. We tend to have more females who respond to surveys like this. We had a decent representation across the city in terms of neighborhood. There were more people from the central neighborhood or the downtown area who did respond. And the racial mix of our survey respondents does not reflect Sandusky at large. So not to get too much into the weeds of that, but we can speculate that we need to be more intentional regarding our communication outreach in the future to be more inclusive and get better responses from all different segments of our residents. We also have a hypothetical idea that there might be some survey fatigue as well, based on the number of planning things that have occurred in the city in the last few years. The big takeaway from the communication piece was that social media is a primary way by which lots of people get their information about the city. I can't actually see this right now, so. Where's this at?
I'm going to jump in. I can see it.
Okay,
All
go.
right, so as Shelley mentioned, social media is a primary way that folks learn about things that are happening in the city and communicate things that are happening in the region. From a participatory standpoint, we saw most of the participants identified as residents and not necessarily business owners. So we take that as an indication that folks are taking this and it's not a consolidation of, say, all downtown business owners that are participating in this. And so this kind of, again, it adds into part of our work that we do as part of gaining this feedback and gaining some of the directions and ideas from the community, but also diagnostics. So as Shelley mentioned, the social media piece, working with the city to ensure that their social media campaigns and part of the communication is focused, since that is kind of evidenced in this work of where folks are learning. Can you see this one?
I know this one, so I don't have to see it. So this slide is really about the primary reason that we wanted to go out and get a little flavor of the voice of community. And it really directly asks the question, where does the city prioritize investment? And you can see that the central neighborhood, which is where downtown is located, the perception is that the city is investing more in downtown. When asked a flip question of how should the city prioritize investment, you can see that it's a pretty easy switch. The community responded that they want a more even share across neighborhoods as well as central. And it's not that big of a shift. So it's very doable. The thing that you can't see in this graph, but that is interesting to note, is that there were more respondents across this survey from the central neighborhood, the downtown location. And yet, when you see how they think the city should prioritize, it's really pretty even Steven across all four categories. And so that is a very community of service sort of attitude that is coming from the community in terms of how they want the city to invest across the different sections.
Right.
And then the final piece, and then we'll turn it back over to Alex, is when we met and talked about how to use information, we really wanted to talk about data-driven conversations. And so part of the decision-making matrix and the organizing piece that we're going to present today is about helping you develop a data-driven conversation. Here are the things that we want to accomplish in the categories, the goals, the initiatives, and then we start to score them so that when we are making decisions as a commission, everybody understands why certain work is being prioritized, because it's a data-driven conversation. So we'll get to that in a few minutes.
Okay. All right, so we're excited to share the draft decision-making matrix framework. On your screen and up on the screen, I'd like to spend a couple minutes of kind of explaining what's represented in here and really kind of a how-to use the framework tool. So First and foremost, you'll see that there are 6 categories. So on the page left, they are neighborhoods, housing, economic development, municipal services, waterfront, and arts and culture. 5 of those 6 categories were directly identified and came out of the work sessions that we had in various groups and the conversations that we had with City Commission members. The 6th, which is arts and culture, was frankly a category that we created to capture some of the comments that we heard and that were across really all platforms that didn't fit neatly or nicely into any of the other 5. And it's so important that that gets elevated as part of the conversation. If we flip all the way back to that word cloud, you'll see history, historic, like there's this love of place that is Sandusky, and there is a culture that's here that really needs to be part of the decision-making in the future of how investments can and should be made. Underneath each one of those 6, I'm going to go into this and actually in the next slide. Underneath each one of those 6, there are 2 goals. And so those 2 goals are really intended to steer decision-making in the future. I will tell you right now, they provide enough flexibility for this commission and future commissions to be able to make decisions that are going to take best advantage of opportunities that frankly we are unaware of that exist today. We don't want to get so specific in a strategic plan that if something comes up down the road, you cannot take action as a city and take advantage of a funding source, of an investment opportunity, of a partnership, of those sorts of things, because we think it's really important for cities to be able to stay nimble. So those goals really are meant to kind of act as an umbrella for the specific initiatives. The specific initiatives relay back to some of those planning documents that we've studied, and they really were born out of conversations that we've had with Commission. Those are, we started with kind of our processes, we started with a blank sheet, and we populated with all the comments and commentary and ideas that we heard from Commission. We cross-referenced those with some of our conversations with the core working group, which is within the city administration, to make sure that they were implementable. And then we cross-referenced those with what we saw and what we heard from the community survey. So in one of our conversations with commission members, I was asked point blank, does this reflect an alignment across multiple parties? And I can say with confidence, it absolutely does. There might be disagreements, there might be other ways to get to the finish line, but what we've experienced and what we've heard through this process is that there are common goals where the city commission and staff can meet, and there's ways to move forward with this. So it's not in this document, but the way that I would describe this is that think of coming in from page right, that is the staff administration, and that is the staff in the administration. Those are the folks that are doing the work every day. That's at the director level, that's at the staff level. They're entering this from page right. Page left, that's city commission. That's where you're setting the categories, and our hope and our intent is that you meet right in that goal, right in that vertical line of where those goals are, and that's where you overlap the value so that commission knows and is aware of the specific initiatives that are happening, and staff and those things can get implemented with confidence of commission. I mentioned this a little bit. The other important aspect of this is how these decisions are going to get made. So as Shelley mentioned, kind of a scoring matrix or rubric that's part of this work. We've applied the same guiding principles that were introduced in the 2016 strategic plan. So those guiding principles are vibrant city, livable city, connected destination, and celebrated city. We've added additional definition and kind of parameters around those to ensure that as this tool moves forward in the future, it's a little bit easily understood. I think that there was some ambiguity in the previous plan, and you can see the 6 categories that are there. So those are very important in our review of the previous plans and some of the tools that the city uses to make decisions. We see that those show up in some, but not all. And we think creating some cohesive language and shared language across multiple documents will help ensure that everybody is coordinated. In the goals, so those are underneath those 6 categories. I'm going to spend a little bit of time, we're going to spend a little bit of time with housing. That was a category that the commission spent a lot of time talking about and thinking about. The 2 goals that come out of the housing portion or category are increased diversity of housing options across the city and maintain quality of existing housing stock. So it's really investing in the existing housing stock, helping people stay in their homes, helping make those repairs, helping neighborhoods, whether it's through public investment or partnerships of folks that can provide services, and then increasing the diversity of housing options across the city. What we heard is that the city operates, it's not a one-size-fits-all as far as a housing typology. Some folks want to go up an elevator building. Some folks want to have single floor living. We have to provide an opportunity for all of those types of development to happen. In the neighborhoods, create programming and communications that strengthen the neighborhood relationships, invest in physical improvements. And you can kind of see, I won't go through all of them because you can spend some more time with that. But we were very intentional to use the specific ideas and conversations to identify those goals. So what's represented on the screen is one example. So this is the housing category. So you'll see, again, page left is the one commission-driven category, which is housing, and the two goals. And the two goals are to increase the diversity of housing, as I mentioned, and also maintain of existing housing stock. And I'm not going to go through all of the specific initiatives or ideas that come underneath that, but that's where you'll see such ideas as inventorying the developable sites that you might have, elevating and organizing programs or resources for folks to be able to tap into, the idea of revisiting some of the codified language and ordinances around transient rental. It shows up in this spot. So again, those are those specific initiatives that can tie into the goals. Lastly, what we would like to kind of introduce is how this tool gets used. So if there's a check mark in the box, this is Shelley and I kind of first pass moving through this time and through this document. The idea is that this is going to get reviewed by commission, this is going to get reviewed by staff and scored accordingly. What we've also added is there's two columns. It's difficult to see, so I apologize. The two columns on page right, one is to consider location. So what we heard from the community input is that kind of going back to that piece about where investment is occurring and where it should occur. So think of this as a multiplier. So it gets a score 0 in that column if it's downtown, 1 if it's in east, 2 if it's in west, 3 it's in south. So the idea is that geography and location is going to provide a way to kind of score each one of the initiatives. And similarly, from a financial standpoint, it gets a 0. It gets a 2 if there's funding in hand and a source that's been identified. It gets a 1 point if there is no funding, but there is a source. So essentially, if there's a grant or if there's an opportunity for partnership, and then it gets a 0 if there is not a source or money that is secured. So the idea is, as we move through, each one of those initiatives are scored, and that helps begin making decisions. It's not going to be the highest point isn't necessarily what gets implemented, but this is going to help inform that decision-making process. And the last thing that I'll say on this is that this is intended to be a living document. This isn't done on September 9th, 2024. This is really intended to be a framework. So if there's another initiatives, if there's other ideas, it can get folded into this and it gets to expand, and that kind of extends the value of this process and this tool. Anything else?
I'm going to bring this back to a data-driven conversation piece that I mentioned earlier. Part of this tool helps elevate why decisions are being made. So if commission has set the direction and the vision for the work that you would like to accomplish, and the city administration is in charge of implementing that work, there are choices that will be made based on financing that's available, based on lots of different factors, but mapping it on a simple table like this helps everyone understand where you're doing the work, what the priority is, and it becomes more of a data-driven conversation because you have a holistic picture of what is possible today. And as commission, I would imagine when you take a look at a document like this, you can then anticipate things that you're probably going to hear about in 6, 9, 12 months because it's on the list, and the administration is doing the work behind the scenes to get it ready to bring to you for consideration. So it's a 2 for 3 for kind of situation. And I guess we like to start with our takeaways and then we like to end with our takeaways. So we want to remind you that multiple audiences, community, commission, and city administration all informed the work that you see today and will continue to. Commission has set the direction, the goals, the categories that are most important, and the administration is ready, willing, and able to begin implementing. They're already implementing, but to take on new work as well.
Excellent. Comments or questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Crable.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I appreciate your addition of the financial column. At my suggestion, I think it's a critical piece, and it needs to be recognized in this kind of a document alongside all of the other waypoints that we're attempting to score or mark. And I've also shared with you earlier this evening a slight concern that I have, and that'll lead to my final comment, that when we score, we'll say the south side for a 3 and downtown for a 0 and the east side for a 1 and the west side is a 2, I think we have to be a little bit cautious about that in this context. And my final comment is that let's say something scores a 23, okay, and something else scores a 20. It doesn't mean it's significantly more important. It just is an indicator. And as much as anything, it may show some of the fragility of trying to turn a qualitative thing into a quantitative outcome. I'm pretty well pleased with the progress. The fact that we're still a couple, 2-3 months, whatever it might end up being, away from something final gives certainly not only myself and fellow commissioners an opportunity to comment on and help you refine it. But the public still has an opportunity to take a look at this, and if they see something that's either glaringly missing or really shouldn't be in there or what have you, to communicate that probably to one of us or to John's office or what have you. But at this point, I'm pretty well pleased. So.
Additional comments?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Vargo.
Thank you. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you to Shelley and Alex. They did a great job facilitating all of us, and really should say thank you to all of us. I would like to thank everyone here because we all, it was an opportunity for us to really be transparent with each other, open, talk about all of our topics that are important to us and how we want to go forward. And then thank you to all the staff who put time into this, figuring out ways to work with us through this as well. The other point I just wanted to make, and Jeff, you bring up a good point about, what's important is something more important. I don't necessarily think it's that, but I do think it's really important. What does the review of this tool look like? Is it yearly? How does that come about? How do we sit down and work with staff and work with the commission, and where are we on this tool? Because we just don't ever want this to become a tool that sits on a shelf and does not go forward, because it is a great working document as long as we use it correctly. So, but thank you again for everything you did.
Thanks. Comments, questions? Having the benefit of, a few of us here had the benefit of this being our second round of developing a strategic plan. The one somewhat overriding concept that has been drilled into me by you twice now is that this is not a blueprint.
It sounds so
This is not a
helpful.
blueprint, this is a roadmap.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think that I take comfort in personally is that the fact that something like this allows us flexibility to pivot and to move. And none of us should feel like we're developing a document here that are going to have a bunch of boxes that we're going to check projects that we're going to check off as we get them done. It is, I think, best described as intentionally ambiguous, because we want the flexibility to move to a new idea or move in a different area or find something that satisfies our constituents, our residents. So I think I've made an effort to try to keep that foremost in my mind, and I think that you've taught me well. I hope I don't die before I graduate. Mr. Murray.
One other thought I wanted to build on something that Commissioner Vargo mentioned, that is in terms of how we use this. And my initial thought, subject to lots of conversation, is that we would take a look when we have a draft budget and then hold that up to that and see how do those investments that we're proposing to make match what we have in terms of remaining objectives on the strategic plan. And then somewhere around 6 months from then, we would sit down and take a look at what we've accomplished and what's still in the plans and provide some feedback with staff in terms of what we think are priorities going forward. So just a thought, we had tremendous success with the bicentennial plan. I don't think anyone would quarrel with that. it was a different document, and it was a different time in the city's history. It was one where things were a little more chaotic, and they weren't, we didn't have the measure of success behind us that we do today. This is, and I agree with Commissioner Crable, you have to be careful about trying to quantify a qualitative thing, but it's helpful as a tool. So I think that this is the right time, this is the right kind of strategic plan for where we are as a city, some 10 years from when we did the bicentennial plan. So thank you.
Mr. President, if I could just comment too. I was involved as a police chief, and I know Aaron was here, and I think that was it from the original bicentennial plan, but it's important that we report out and generally use the annual report from each department to report to the commission and the public on what was accomplished from the strategic plan. So you'll see that document, not this year because we're just going to be kicking it off, but at the end of 25 going into 26, what the departments are focused on is what's in the strategic plan, and that report from our annual report will be focused on reporting to that, like I said, to the commission and the public. I think it's important, so thank you.
Makes an accountability quotient, doesn't it?
Yes.
Be accountable for that, sure. Additional comments, Commissioner?
Mr. Chairman,
John.
back when I worked for the city years ago, when we did a strategic plan, whenever we brought something to the commission, we had to tie the correspondence to the strategic plan and why this fit within the strategic plan. I don't know if that's something that we would want to look at, but I do want to just mention that you guys have done a great job, and your presentation is always real good, real crisp, and you've given us plenty of opportunity to share our thoughts, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, any investment that we have that is tied to the strategic plan will be on legislation showing that, so appreciate your comment, but definitely.
If there are no further questions, I'm going to allow you to not have to sit through the entirety of this meeting and get back home.
Legislation, I appreciate
An hour
that.
this evening.
Thank you guys for your
Thank you.
time. Really appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have a public hearing on the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. And this hearing will be conducted by our own Nicole Grohe. As this is a public hearing, we'll entertain questions from the public and from commission at the conclusion.
Good evening. Tonight, we are going to go over the Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, or the CAPER. The CAPER is a report that is done that details what happened throughout the program year for the past year. It shows the achievements that we are working towards achieving the 2019 to 2023 consolidated plan. For 2023, the city was allocated $708,428, to spend on eligible activities during the time period of the program year, which was July 1st of 2023 through June 30th of 2024. That annual allocation is calculated through a formula that is determined by HUD, or the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Sandusky administered several of these activities within the plan, including code enforcement, public facility improvements, clearance and demolition, youth, and public service activities. Of all the funds that were awarded, $549,004, or 77%, was drawn down when this was created. The city is on track to spend the remaining funds as they are already allocated to projects. And then the CAPER also contains some data from previous program years, as funding can span multiple years. There is a chart that goes over the consolidated planning goals of 2019 to 2023, and then it has all our activities. I'm going to go through each of these in more detail, though, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the slide. Housing The first goal is housing from the consolidated plan, and we have an action put in place there, and that is to provide affordable housing and remove barriers for fair housing. And throughout the program year, the City of Sandusky supported this by the engagement of a fair housing consultant who fielded 118 calls regarding fair housing questions, and the consultant also provided fair housing materials for residents and hosted several workshops. The city also demolished 8 structures during the program year, and that totaled $239,145. And we are also on track to demolish 937 West Washington, which will be a significant project. For the housing rehabilitation activity, the city provided funding as leverage to the Erie County Health Department, and that is to help extend their lead hazard and healthy homes program. This year, that partnership resulted in 2 houses being rehabilitated at $43,649. The next goal is neighborhood stabilization, and an action in the plan is to enhance the quality of life for people living in low and moderate income neighborhoods through public investment in facilities, improvements, and services, as well as the elimination of blight. So during the program year, the community development activities that happened this year were for recreation and transit activities. 2 parks were improved, JC and Sproul Park. There was some seating that was installed, and a baseball field was created, and that totals $26,316. As far as transit waiting facility improvements, there were 2 stops that were improved with equipment, and those are located at 5 Points and Buchanan and Camp Street, and that totaled $14,582. Public facility activities, those included road resurfacings. There were 7 local street segments, and then there was also some carryover funds that will be used in this program year, Program 24. The total of that was $197,880. Special needs, that is one of the next categories, and the action for that is to promote access to public services for special needs populations. They have to assume to be low to moderate income. There's a whole list of people. I'm not going to read all of them. So the accomplishments during program year 23 was that there were 2,283 violations that were recorded through code enforcement, and in total 1,541, or 67% of these inspections resulted in compliance. And the total spent on that activity was $90,000. The next activity was the youth program that engaged 577 youths during the program year, and that totaled $55,000. And then during the program year, 230 people were assisted through the subrecipient grants. Those subrecipients included Erie County Senior Center Meals on Wheels program, New Jerusalem Church's Heating and Cooling program, and Ogo's Mobile Food Pantry. And that totaled $51,264. There is actually a goal on COVID too in the plan, but since we had allocated all our money prior to this program year, there is nothing to report on that one. There is an area for low moderate objectives, and that is one of the objectives that you can categorize for CDBG. And in our plan, there were low moderate income areas that were highlighted, and those are the areas in the orange on the map up there, and those areas are calculated by HUD and the census, using census data. So for program year 23, we had a goal to reach 80% of those LMA areas, and we actually hit 87%. So we did our goals on that. There was a meeting with the CPAC, which met earlier in the year, and there were a few comments that I just wanted to share with Commission. There was a preference of funds being spent on programming versus operations or salary. There was an inquiry about the process of approval for the rehab program and how it's related to lead abatement. And then there was a comment on supporting code enforcement activities that resulted in compliance, which results in the stabilization of existing housing stock. And that is the conclusion of my presentation.
Questions or comments, Commissioners? Questions from the public regarding this public hearing? Ms. Groy, I know that different years, we've had carryover, and we had some from 23 to 24 that we spent, I think, on paving. Have you spent all the money this year? Are you going to spend all the money this year?
Oh, definitely. We always do.
Good job.
Yeah.
The whole 708,000. Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. I'm always concerned, I know that the program allows for carryovers, but occasionally you'll run into a program where if you don't spend it, you lose it, and we sure don't want to.
Yeah, we have to spend so much percentage, but we are definitely fine. Mhm. Yep.
Additional comments or questions, commissioners or public? Not, I will declare this public hearing closed. Declare this public hearing. Any residents with comments regarding tonight's agenda, please step to the podium and share with us your comments on the agenda. You give us your name and address, we'll put it in the record.
Greetings, everyone. Tom Lamarca, 206 48th Street. Regarding, well, first off, I'll start with the presentation that was made. It was difficult to hear what they were saying because they speak so soft that it's just unbelievable. And, you know, they're making a presentation to the city, and it's hard to see, and it's hard for the people to capture. So, fortunately, you all had the inside scoop and what was going on, but I couldn't tell you what they said. My question regards agenda item number 1. How many employee families will be enrolled in the $100,000 high-risk plan on the insurance? And does the city have enough funds in the account if additional people need to jump into that high-risk plan? So that's the first one. And you know, I mean, heck, it could be 1, it could be 101, who knows? But you know, curious about that. And then I'm also curious about the Ebner versus the Kinzel and City of Sandusky on the Airbnb with the settlement of $265,000. Nothing's mentioned about what the city's legal costs were, and I would have to think that you'd use some outside counsel to handle that. And if not, wonderful, but what would that number be? And Kinzel's, I think, are reasonable people, so perhaps they'll make a donation to cover that $265,000 that we're taking the hit on. And then I also wonder, is there not a errors and emissions insurance policy available to handle things like that? I don't know. I'm just asking. And then item A on the consent agenda regarding the liquor license for the Paradise Pier. I don't have an objection to that, but the residents down there are complaining a lot about the noise and the lighting, the overflow of the lighting spilling into their homes, and the changing of the floodplain, I'll say. And I know there were things that the developer were supposed to do when they made that presentation, and I'm just wondering if they followed through with everything they were supposed to do. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lamarca. Additional comments on agenda items to the public? If not, we'll move to several communications from staff recommending various pieces of legislation. Can I have a motion to accept those communications?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion. Without objection, the motion will be approved. Hearing no objection, that motion is approved. Commissioners, we have 4 items on the consent agenda this evening. Do any of you wish to move any of those items to our regular agenda? If not, Ms. Mars, will you present the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. President. Item A, new liquor license for Paradise Pier LLC. Item B, approval of budget amendment number 3. Item C, approval of change order number 1 and final of Follett and Mill Street elevated water tank inspection and THM removal system project. Item D, approval of Columbus Avenue and streetscape project easement with Erie County.
Commissioners, having heard this liquor license request and these ordinances, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Murray.
I move for the adoption of the 3 ordinances pursuant to Section 14 of the city's charter and for passage of the motion.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second discussion. I think we have a question regarding item A that perhaps we could provide an answer for, and I would turn to perhaps Mr. Orszag and tell us, I know there was some issue regarding completion of items, and perhaps you could speak to all those items being completed that were required by our building department.
So that's a completely different facility. This is the boathouse type of facility that you can rent their boathouses,
Tiny ones.
the tiny ones. So
Building next door is.
the
Right.
other facilities not included with this. It's a totally separate issue.
Great. Good answer. Ms. Myers, you call the roll on the motion, please.
Yes, Mr. President, Mr. Pajali,
Yes.
Mr. Coons,
Yes.
Mr. Crable.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo.
Yes.
Mr. Wantington. Mr. Brady.
Yes.
Mr. Murray.
Yes.
And now on the liquor license and ordinance.
Mr. Pajali.
Yes.
Mr. Coons.
Yes.
Mr. Crable.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo.
Yes.
Mr. Wantington.
Yes.
Mr. Brady.
Yes.
Mr. Murray.
Yes.
That liquor license and ordinance are passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 1.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing and approving a consulting agreement with Samaritan Fund Program, LLC of Metairie, Louisiana, for services related to health insurance, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Coons.
move for adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules as contained in the city charter.
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Reader, I wonder if you'd give us a brief overview on how this plan works and how it ultimately could be very beneficial to the community.
Correct. So this is kind of a win-win program. So just a reminder, the city is self-insured for health insurance. So any expenditures that we have for health insurance for our employees or our dependents is coming out of our health insurance plan. So we are not in a group plan. So anytime there's expenses, dollar for dollar, that need to be paid, it's coming out of the city's pocket. So this fund was brought to us by One Digital, that was formerly the Ashley Group. They work with us in our benefits. This Samaritan Fund program, what it does is, first of all, the employee has to volunteer for this, and it's only open to employees or their dependents with a serious medical condition. So, and the city does have the option of saying, no, we don't want this person in the program, so we would not incur a fee for anybody that's not enrolled into the program. So somebody with a serious medical condition, if they volunteer to be in this program, the city would be paying $55,000 upfront for that person. If they were taking their whole family over, it's a maximum cap of $100,000. But what that cap does, the Samaritan Fund works with that individual with a medical condition. The last thing you want to do is worry about your finances and how much am I going to have to spend for this treatment? I have to go to this doctor and I have to do this. What the Samaritan Fund does, it basically is like a Good Samaritan program. It reaches out to this person, it finds them a health insurance plan in the open market. So their expenses are no longer on the insurance, their expenses are no longer here with the city on our insurance plan. So all of their expenses are, paid from a separate insurance company. On top of that, the Samaritan Fund, with the donation that the city puts in towards the fund and other Good Samaritans that donate, they, as the individual with a serious medical condition, they pay $0, zero out of pocket, whether that's for their premium for the health insurance plan that they're on or any doctor's visits, the treatments that they receive, it is at zero cost to them. So really it's a win-win. The person that needs medical care is getting it for $0 if they agree to enroll in this program. And then on the flip side, the city is capped at, if it's just the individual, it's $55,000 that we'll pay. So as we all know, the cost of insurance, the plan, the cost of treatment, we greatly exceed $55,000 for anybody with a serious medical condition. But like I said, the important part is the person that needs the care is getting it and at zero cost out of their pocket. So it's a win-win.
Thank you, Mr. Reader. That's a wonderful concept, and it really, what it does is it provides the employee with the care that they, in most cases, desperately need, and rolls those costs off of the city books by buying this plan, buying this policy.
Correct.
Great idea. Ms. Myers, will you call the roll on the motion, please?
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Wantington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Wantington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Sorry, item number 2, please.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing approving a settlement agreement between the City of Sandusky and Douglas Ebner relating to transient rental matters and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the City Charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Waddington.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the City Charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Mr. Hastings, I wonder if you can answer the question regarding our legal cost. It's my recollection that we had an insurance carrier that our costs were limited to a certain amount of money. Can you share with us that?
Certainly, the defense cost, the attorney was provided by the insurance carrier, so that didn't cost the city anything.
So we do not have attorney fees.
We do not have attorney fees, other than the court-ordered attorney's fees to the Ebner plaintiffs, which were, at the time of the mediation in the 6th District, the claim was over $380,000, and they were making an additional $60,000 claim, as well as claiming that the clock was still running on their fees. So with the help of the 6th District Court of Appeals mediator, we were able to come to a mutually agreeable settlement.
Thank you, Mr. Hastings. Additional comments or questions, Commissioners? Ms. Myers, you call roll on that motion, please.
Mr. Bajali?
Yes.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Bajali?
Yes.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 3, please.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing and directing the city manager to purchase a 2024 sport utility vehicle from Ken Gadley Chrysler Dodge Jeep of Norwalk, Ohio, through the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program as authorized by ORC Section 125.04C for the Police Department, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the City Charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner
I move for the adoption of this ordinance, excuse me, under suspension of the rules in accordance with Section 14 of the City Charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Chief Oliver, I'll be impressed if you know the answer to this, because I didn't give you this question in advance, and I apologize for that, but I just thought of it now.
Try.
I know that this car is being used perhaps by administration and detectives. We don't have to spend a bunch of money outfitting it, red lights, sirens, decals?
No, everything we're using or purchased in this vehicle and everything we're going to put in the vehicle is paid for by forfeiture funds. It doesn't cost the city anything, thanks to our partnerships with the federal authorities. So it's completely paid for out of forfeiture.
And I would guess that if you're using it for the detectives, you probably don't want to ride around with overhead lights and stuff like that.
I can answer that.
That was just a guess.
We'd prefer not to, yes.
Additional comments or questions, Commissioners? Ms. Myers, you poll the commission on the motion, please.
Mr. Bajali?
Yes.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Now on the ordinance.
Mr. Bajali?
Yes.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 4.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing and directing the city manager to purchase an HP Latex 315 Print and Cut Plus Solution digital printer from FlexPrint Intermediate LLC of Mesa, Arizona, doing business as Flex Technology Group of Greater Ohio LLC of Broadview Heights, Ohio, through the Omnia Partners Purchasing Program for the Division Streets and Traffic, and declaring this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the City Charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, go ahead.
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Bajali.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to adopt this ordinance in accordance with Section 14 of the City Charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Nobody cares about a digital printer. Probably don't know what a digital printer is, do you?
Yeah. Yes, yes,
Mr. Crable does, I know that.
I do.
Ms. Myers, you poll the commission on the motion, please.
Mr. Bajali?
Yes.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 5.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing and directing the city manager to expend funds to Garland DBS Incorporated of Cleveland, Ohio, through the U.S. Communities Government Purchasing Alliance for the roof replacement at the Restroom and Concessions Building located at Shoreline Park, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. President, I move approval of this ordinance in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Got a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Myers, you poll the commission on that motion.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you present our last item, item number 6.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into an independent contractor agreement with KP Gymnastics LLC of Sandusky, Ohio, for the purpose of recreational programming, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, what is your pleasure?
Mr. President, I move approval of this ordinance in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Got a motion and a second discussion. Mr. Whirling, is Mr. Whirling with us? Mr. Whirling is with us. Pretty popular program,
Yes.
gymnastics?
Yes.
Okay. And can you share with us how that's working? We get a small cut of that for handling the administration portion of it, but it's really run by an outside vendor.
Yes, Commissioner President. This is to continue the program that was with Barb Rose and the Rose Gold Gymnastics for the past 34 years. She's sold the business to KP Gymnastics, and this is to continue that program. What's that?
Where does this?
The program is run out of the Erie County Fairgrounds, I think Building 5 currently.
We just lease the space.
No, she handles.
She leases the space.
Yes,
for that. Okay.
Yep.
Very popular idea.
definitely tumbling all the way through level 2 gymnastics.
Yeah. Great. Comments or questions, Commissioners?
Nice.
Ms. Myers, you poll the commission on that motion.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. That concludes our regular agenda. We'll turn to our city manager for his report.
Good evening, Commission, audience, and staff. I have a donation from Sandusky Rec. Would like to thank Monty Kaufman for his donation of 2 sets of golf clubs and 1 push cart to Mills Creek Golf Course. If we get a motion to accept that donation.
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Without objection, the motion be approved. Hearing no objection, that motion is approved with our thanks to Mr. Kaufman.
I have a late entry this afternoon to add to the manager's report. I'd like to request a motion allowing the city to apply for the Cyber Ohio Local Government Grant Program, which is a cybersecurity software and services grant. This grant would allow the city to help offset costs related to cybersecurity. If I can get a motion to apply for that grant.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Without objection, that motion be approved. Hearing no objection, that motion is approved.
Next Finance Committee meeting is on Friday, September 13th, this Friday at 8 a.m. at City Hall. The city recently received the Ohio Auditor's Award with Distinction for the 2023 audit. This award was granted as we had no findings for recovery, material citations, material weaknesses, or no significant deficiencies for the 2023 audit. Public Works. This week, Public Works staff, along with consultants from the EPA, will once again be canvassing throughout the city to continue the water service line inventory for all private service lines as mandated by the U.S. EPA. City staff will be wearing shirts with a city seal and have city-issued IDs. We encourage residents to participate as it only takes a few minutes as an incredible resource which is being provided to our city. For the Planning Department, the Public Arts and Culture Commission announces a call for artists for the 2024-2025 City Hall Gallery installation. The theme is Connections. Artists are invited to interpret this theme in any number of ways. For example, the connection of people in community or in friendship, or more abstractly, the visual connection of shapes and lines on a canvas. Submissions are due Friday, September 27th. The call for artists and application for submission can be found at www.cityofsandusky.com/publicart. Excuse me. And lastly, Sandusky Transit was recently awarded 3 new facility projects in a high-capacity vehicle through the Ohio Federal Fiscal Year 23 and 24. The Bus and Facility Program, Section 5339 of the Governor's Apportionment. The facility projects will look to restore the heating and cooling systems of STS Operations Hub and Maintenance Garage, as well as resurfacing of the asphalt to the parking lot of the Amtrak's grounds. The additional vehicle will be a 32-passenger ADA-compliant bus and will be the 4th new addition to the STS fleet awarded in '24 and will be introduced into service in 2025. That concludes my report. I'll take any questions you have.
Comments or questions for the city manager?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Keller.
Mr. Orzak, I just wonder, when does, refresh my memory, when does do the proposals come back on the rec center?
When do the proposals come back?
Yeah.
It'll probably be another month or so. We'll have the programming piece to you guys on what type of programming at the facility, and then discuss the criteria architect that's still out there for request for proposals, so that hasn't been decided yet. It might be in 6 more weeks, because we have to evaluate those as well.
Mr. Orzak, would it be accurate to say that we would be expecting to receive some recommendations from staff on the programming to be able to share those programming concepts with the criteria architect? Is that kind of the chronology of events?
Yeah, anticipate getting the commission the programming so that we can give some final direction to the criteria architect before we do that. So the programming piece will come first, and then the criteria architect and what we want in the facility and what our needs are for the facility will be after that.
That seems to make sense.
And,
Commissioner Vargo.
and then, John, if, not to, but to be a little bit of a devil's advocate, if it were to come back, because we all know that the dollar's not going as far as it has been going with construction costs. If it were to come back, obviously more than what we were planning for, as far as a backup plan, Jeff brought up last meeting about, the opportunity to take another look at mills if we needed something like that, if that's a possibility. And you did it with the Justice Center. So I just want to know if that is part of the process. We will have all speak and work together to come up with the best opportunity to have the most programming for the most kids and the community members to have the best access to.
That's correct. We'll evaluate once the criteria architect's selected and they get numbers for the facility in general and what the square footage is based on what programming we need at the new facility. And if that comes in outlandish, then we'll have to take a look at Mills or another facility, but that'll be evaluated at that time.
Okay.
Additional comments or questions for the city manager?
Yeah, I look forward to hearing, I'm sorry.
Mr. Gribber.
Sorry. I look forward to hearing, what staff's comments are on programming, because I know that there's a lot of questions about, youth programming, for example. Are we going to be losing any youth programming that currently is taking place at the mill site? Or are there enhancements being considered, that sort of thing? And then how does all of that mesh with, programming for the rest of the community, for adults, for seniors, as an example?
Yeah, we're currently working on that with Colleen and her staff. Have been working on it for several weeks now. Probably have at least two or three more weeks of getting through that process, and then they'll meet with me and we'll have a recommendation to the commission. So it's all, we don't want to shoehorn programming into a facility unless we have the room to do it. So we'll make a recommendation to all of you, and then you can weigh in and tell us what you want to do.
And there's always a trade-off with what we can afford versus,
Items of old business, any items of old business, Commissioners?
Mr. President,
Mr. Coons?
just a quick question, because as one who wasn't on the city commission previously when this particular case started with Mr. Ebner, what are the implications for the future as it relates to transit rentals? What do we learn from it? What is it that we can say about, what we have to look ahead for in terms of addressing so we don't end up on this path again, if that makes any sense? I always like to know, that we can move forward and try our best to avoid situations like this. So I'm just curious what we can talk about, what you can say about what it is that we need to think about in the future, particularly as it relates to these properties, zoning areas. It's just something I want to feel comfortable about.
I think perhaps Mr. Hastings is most qualified to speak to what we did, why we lost that case, and I'll let you speak to it.
Certainly, yeah, the case is very limited prospective application. What the 6th District Court of Appeals held in one of the previous rulings is that I believe our 2012 ordinance limiting transient rental was inappropriately passed by the commission in an unconstitutional way. And since that time, we have since amended our transient rental ordinances at least twice, I believe. So our current ordinances, I believe, were passed in a constitutional manner.
Thank you.
So we have a good ordinance at this point. And that,
Well, we're always looking to improve our ordinances. But, and I believe we're working on that right now, but there's been no constitutional challenge to our current ordinance.
yes.
Mr. President.
Mr. Crable?
I take that back. There is a pending lawsuit that we removed to federal court with regard to a property on Cleveland Road.
Okay.
Mr. Crable?
Something will be coming back to this body, though, about transient rentals and where in the community they're going to be allowed and how we're going to handle that, right? I mean, that is still out there. I didn't somehow miss it.
I don't think you missed it. I think what Commissioner Hastings was, or Law Director Hastings was, I gave you I demoted you.
That was definitely a promotion for which I'm unqualified.
What he was referring to was the law, but
Right.
I think he's referring to the fact that we are looking at the transient rental ordinance now. Mr. Pajali has been heading up a committee now of one to make a recommendation regarding where it is appropriate. And it's not a moratorium issue on it.
Mr. Chairman, what we're focusing on is the moratorium that was put in place and how we're going to handle that. So I've talked to Ms. Gilson, I've talked to Ms. Blair, I've talked to the law director, and I had some ideas, but I seem to hit a dead end here and a dead end there with my ideas. But in the last discussion I had, I think we may have a solution. We just have to get to sit down and work it out, all the finer points. So hopefully soon.
I think, Mr. Pajali, I think you're still within your time limit. I think we gave you 18 months, and look, that's what the moratorium was based on, was 18 months, and we're still within that time limit.
Yeah, the clock's ticking.
Clock is ticking.
Yeah.
Additional items of old business.
Airbnbs are.
Items of new business. Any items of new business?
Airbnbs are.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Murray.
I need to request that we set an executive session. I'd like that motion for personnel collective bargaining.
Second?
Got a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Myers, will you call a roll on that motion?
Mr. Bajali?
Yes.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Mr. Crable?
Yes.
Ms. Vargo?
Yes.
Mr. Wantington?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That executive session is set. Any additional items of new business? Any public comments regarding any items that pertain to city business? Please step to the podium and tell us your name and your concern about city business. Name and address, I should say.
Catherine Carter, 5309 Columbus Avenue. We were just discussing the situation with this situation on the Chaussee. And is this going to open up the Chaussee for more rentals? Or should I run out and buy a building now and get it done before you guys stop everything? Could do that. Because I've seen some massive homes being built out there, and I would think they'd be really PO'd if they had something like this coming in next door to them, never knowing who's next door. I know some of the cities toward Cleveland stuff have been making regulations like it's not allowed to be rented for less than 2 days or 2 nights. It's not allowed to be rented by any single person. They're putting all kinds of restrictions. Whoever owns it has to have a $300,000 bond just in case something happens at the home or a next door neighbor or something. So I didn't know what kind of restrictions were going on with this. And like you said, you don't need another lawsuit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Additional comments from the public on any item that pertains to city business? If not, we will move to executive session.
Here or upstairs?
Just a personal.
You're ready to roll, huh? I'm going up there and staying.
I don't know.
Can we stay down?
Are we here or upstairs?
Stay here, Kelly.
Hey, Jeff, upstairs. We'll be upstairs.
Lovely.
We'll be upstairs. Yeah, just so you know, that's what we're gonna be. I got it.
I'm packing up then. But somebody's going to have to let me on the elevator. You might as well take them.
I saved you, Mark.
No, go ahead.
Here.
Can I have a motion to come out of executive session, Commissioner?
moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion. Without objection, that motion will be approved. Hearing no objection, that motion is approved. We're out of executive.
Move to adjourn.
6:34, motion to adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned.